Good evening, everyone. This is High Point Mayor Jay Wagner welcoming you to the High Point City Council meeting for June 5th, 2023. If you're listening online, all members of council are present here at City Hall, and thus we have a quorum for the council to do business. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and participating in your local government. And we will begin this meeting by asking everyone to rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have one proclamation to read this evening. And it reads as follows. Whereas for more than 200 years, the American flag has been a proud symbol of the people of our nation and the values for which we stand. And whereas our flag serves as a beacon of hope, promise, and possibility, thanks to the heroes who have served and continue to serve in our armed forces. And whereas all Americans living here and around the world with varied backgrounds salute the flag of the United States of America. And whereas on August 3rd, 1949, President Harry S. Truman signed an act of Congress designated June 14th of each year as National Flag Day. And whereas in partnership with the Alexander Martin chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, a special celebration of Flag Day will take place on Saturday, June 10th at 10 a.m. at the High Point Public Library Plaza. And whereas all citizens of the city of High Point are encouraged to share in the celebration of our beautiful flag and all it represents. Now therefore, I, J.W. Wagner, Mayor of the city of High Point, do hereby declare Saturday, June 10th, 2023 as American Flag Day in the city of High Point. Is there someone from the chapter? Oh, hey.
Yeah.
We'll stand up here in the middle and get a quick picture. Here, I'm going to let you hold it. That's what I was talking about.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if they mentioned it, but this Saturday there will be a Flag Day celebration down at the library, right at the farmers market. Our library director, Mary Sizemore, is here. I believe that event starts at 10 a.m. on Saturday, so they'll have a Flag Day event for anyone who wants to go to celebrate Flag Day that Daughters of the American Revolution and the library will be hosting. Saturday at 10 a.m., right, Mary? Okay.
Okay, excellent. Next, we're going to have our strategic plan update. We'll begin with Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. This report summarizes the local code enforcement activities for the month of May 2023. Minimum housing, we've had 19 citizen complaints and 3 new city-initiated cases. Demolition ordinances, we have 8 units with contracts out for demolition, 2 owner-initiated demolitions, and 5 unit pending repairs. Those are 1004 Prospect, 337 Wingo, 613 Manley, and 524 Cross, and 1222 Carter Street. Next, we have the public nuisance cases. We have 47 new citizen complaints, 168 new city-initiated cases, 248 cases abated, and 88 of those are city abated. 196 of those are owner abated. Next, in zoning, we have 17 new citizen complaints, 29 new city-initiated cases, 146 signs collected. That number will go up very soon. Overall, we have active cases is 545, 243 minimum housing, 194 public nuisance, and 108 zoning. Next up, I'll turn it forward to Lori Loosemore, our code enforcement supervisor.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. Oops, I think I hit the button too soon. It's okay. Okay. So tonight, for May monthly updates, this just kind of recaps the numbers that Councilman Williams just read as far as our being 100% proactive in complaints. So public nuisance, as you see, the cases have definitely risen. So other zoning and minimum housing cases have kind of fallen behind a little bit just because that requires so much time during this part of the year. But we're kind of still keeping up there with the complaints from citizens coming in. We had 168 and they turned in 215 last month. And the property that I'm showing you this month, oh gosh, has been a house that's been going on, as is stated here, since 2017. And it was one of the old cases and they had some legal issues. So we did hold a hearing and we issued an order to repair or demolish that had a compliance date of August of 2018. The trustee that had been appointed, I think trustee is appointed, an executor had been appointed, had passed or was pulled off the case, so we had to wait till they reappointed a new one, and that took quite some time. And then the property was sold, and was an heir property, and it got sold to the grandson or inherited to the grandson. And then he pulled out permits and started that in October of 2020, and then he ran out of money, and so then he in turn sold it to someone, the current owner, and they obtained their permits in March of 2023, and then it was completed in May. And so this is what the house looked like previously. I did not have a whole lot of interior pictures because it was so old. So that was the outside, and then in May it was completed and it's listed for sale, so I did take the pictures off the internet, so they look definitely more professional than our usual pictures. But this is what it looks like now, and I've not checked to see if it's sold yet.
What was the address of this property?
510 Sunset.
Okay, nice.
And that's it. Do anyone have any questions?
That story.
Thank you.
We want to continue this. Thanks, right. That's all we have.
Okay. Anyone else? You have a report?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ever since back, a few weeks ago, we introduced our new branding initiative to the city. There's been a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz. Just in the way of updates, we've been working with Civic Brand. We've now received a full implementation plan and style guide. And if anyone who's ever worked on the marketing or branding project knows that the style guide is kind of the Bible or way of working for any new brand. And so we have that now. Staff is reviewing it to see if there's any necessary changes. And we're looking at a few dates in July and August for activation and community introduction events.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else regarding strategic plan? All right. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the public comment period. Public comment period is held on our first meeting of our first regularly scheduled meeting each month. People who have signed the register to speak will be taken in order in which they are listed. Anyone else who wishes to speak and is not signed in will be taken after those who have signed. People addressing the city council will limit their comments to 3 minutes. The timer's on the wall. I would ask you, please, to take note of the timer as you're speaking, and please don't speak over 3 minutes. I'm going to enforce that tonight. When I call your name, please come to the podium, give us your name and address, and then you can address the council on any subject that you would like. If there's a large number of people present, we would ask that you maybe designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition. And that's it. So I will begin. I'll go down the list, and then if there's someone who would like to speak who didn't get a chance to sign up, you can go after that. First speaker is Ken Orms. Next speaker after Mr. Orms will be Amy Purcell.
Good evening. My name is Ken Orms. I'm 3525 Sainsbury Lane in High Point. And well, in a million years, I would have never guessed I would say that you have managed to make the Democrat-controlled Guilford County look like right-wing conservatives, even though they raised their pay by 50%. You'll make them look like amateurs if you vote to increase your pay by a whopping 88%. That's just plain obscene and irresponsible. But unfortunately, it is in keeping with the mismanagement and poor financial decisions you and Guilford County have made for years when you lie and mislead taxpayers. Here are some examples. Voters rejected a baseball stadium, but you built it anyhow. You said it would cost $35 million. The final cost was $76 million. The police station, you signed a not to exceed contract for $18 million, but the police station cost $27 million. The $120 million of bonds you want to issue now, the final cost will be more than $146 million, and according to a consultant, tax assessments may need to be increased by 10%, which will cause higher taxes. Another consultant said 2 new parking structures are needed and will cost $39 million, but with interest, they're going to be closer to $47 million. The $2 billion school bond the county will issue will cost almost $3 billion to repay. A new wastewater plant being discussed by Guilford and Randolph counties is projected to cost $600 to $700 million, but the total cost will be closer to $850 million. You changed the length of your terms from 2 to 4 years, even though voters rejected that idea, but you didn't care. Within 6 months of being elected, you took just 5 council members to override voters and change term limits. A few years ago, you boasted you had the highest paid city manager in the area, only to fire him a year later and give him a golden parachute. Several years ago, you purchased some properties, even though the assistant city manager told you the city had no plans for the property and didn't know why you bought them. You tried to use eminent domain to illegally seize private property for developers to use near the stadium. You're paying a consultant $350,000 to see if any women or minorities were unfairly treated when bidding on projects, even though no one has cited a single case of discrimination. You gave the Reparations Commission $46,000 to do their work, even though you've never given any other city commission any money. It must be embarrassing to hear a laundry list of your mismanagement and poor financial decisions. I suggest that you put term limits and your 88% pay increase on the November ballot and let voters decide. Pass this year's budget without your pay increases, and if voters approve the referendums, you'll get your pay raise next year, and you can change term limits back to 2 years just as easily as you change them to 4 years. If you believe your decisions are right, prove it by letting taxpayers vote and then live by their decisions. If you don't, it means you don't care what voters say. It's all about what you want.
Time's up. Thank you. Next speaker is Amy Purcell, and the speaker after that will be Pat Schreiber.
Amy Purcell, Colfax. I'm here to renew my invitation to visit our farm in Colfax. It is important to see a place when you have a decision to make about its future. It is a rare and beautiful place, an environmental asset. It is where the headwaters of the West Fork of the Deep River begin, the water supply of High Point, which has been rated as impaired by the North Carolina Department of Water Quality. It is also defined as a future growth area for High Point, so your decision is truly significant as it will shape the future planning for this area and define what growth is for High Point. I hope that growth includes conservation and preservation, as the land needs to be tended to in a responsible and thoughtful way through planning before zoning and engagement with a community that is truly new to High Point and without any representation at this important moment. I argue that the proposed land use change is incompatible with the current use and that it is unreasonable to impose such a dramatic and unnecessary change. It is inappropriate to build a county school less than a mile from the county line and 2 miles from an existing school. It is dangerous to locate a school so close to hospitals and newly approved industrial parks on inadequate roads. The cost of improving the roads is avoidable, as there are other viable sites for the school where roads are adequate, institutional zoning is in place, and centrally located. The residents of Gray Lane have not been consulted in the proposed realignment of our road. If you rezone and annex this property without any agreement in place, we are in fear of being ghosted, bulldozed over without access to our property and constitutional rights. The review factors for conditional zoning require that adverse effects on the use, enjoyment, and value of adjacent properties be mitigated, and they have not been so to date. Farm use is not compatible with school use, as large, heavy equipment, livestock, and dangerous chemicals need to be transported on the road. Our farm is registered as a centennial farm and also an enhanced voluntary agricultural district, a protection against annexation and for the preservation of farmland. Residents are concerned about their Second Amendment rights, as it is a felony to possess a firearm on school property or within 1,000 feet unless on private property. A city attorney at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting claimed that the zoning decision would not place Gray Lane on school property, but on Guilford County property, and this somehow resolves the conflict, an opinion that demands further review. The proposed plan is being mitigated to a minimum standard. This is a low-density residential area, not an urban site. If the school is going to be built, it should respect the rural identity of the area with buffers to all sides of the property and address all adjacent landowners. Please deny this zoning request or delay and continue this decision until the immediate concerns of Gray Lane landowners are addressed and mitigated in the project proposal along with those of the community.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Pat Schreiber.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Pat Schreiber, and I live on Bunker Hill Sandy Ridge Road, and I am here to address the location of the school, specifically land use. I chaired the Stakeholders Committee in the development of the heart of the Triad Land Use Plan by truly working together. We had people from everywhere working on that plan, and it took us years to develop the collaborative plan for economic vitality and quality of life that was approved in 2010 by 7 counties and municipalities. I stood before you in 2010, presented it, and you voted unanimously for it. In 2011, you used the heart of the Triad Plan in developing your Northwest Area Plan. The area I'm specifically addressing is at the corner of South Bunker Hill and Boylston, targeted by Guilford County for a new school, is clearly identified in both land use plans as low-density residential, and we should be following that. There are no other approved plans in place. On Thursday night, Guilford County Commissioner Austin made it very clear it was time for all municipalities in Guilford County to start paying your fair share of the cost of operations of schools, and they would be coming after these funds. Where are you going to get that money? I would recommend that you keep South Bunker Hill, that's being discussed tonight, as low density, and collect property taxes from the over 100 homes that can be built on that site instead of feeding a cash cow. And then that way you will be generating millions through the years from that same piece of land. Some other facts to consider are, I am a career educator. I was at central office in a large school district for over 20 years, and Guilford County's enrollment is dropping. In 2018, it was 73,210 children. This year, on the 20th day, it was 67,949. Guilford County has a teacher shortage, and class size has increased because of it. They need to focus on reassigning, recruiting, renovating existing schools to fix the problems and stop misleading the public through misinformation. The headwaters are for the West Fork, as you've already heard, for the Deep River on that site. If this site is destroyed, where are you going to get your water? Traffic jams will prevent and/or delay emergency vehicles from reaching people in the property area, and they're paying for this. I recommend highly that you vote no to developing this land and keep it low-density residential. It was planned to be a buffer. It's a clear vision in separating industrial from residential and agricultural. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiber. Next speaker is Patricia Derrick.
Patricia Derrick, Bolston Road, Colfax resident. This is about the proposed school rezoning in Colfax. I ask you tonight, do you have a responsibility to your constituents and to all North Carolinians to protect taxpayer funds? I think you do. Would it be easy to say the benefit of a school for children outweighs any negative impact to a community and taxpayer funds? Yeah, that would be easy. But that would be a dereliction of duty. Guilford County school system is abhorrently wasting taxpayer funds. As a taxpayer, I've had enough with all the overspending and non-accountability. The waste of taxpayer funds even comes down to tons of effort, time, and cost being put into these land use plans that was just mentioned, the Northwest Plan and the Heart of the Triad Plan, just for a single board to pop up later and act like it doesn't matter. It was done for a purpose. The benefit of children of High Point does not outweigh the negative impacts to the community and taxpayers because the original project was proposed in 2019 at a cost of $38 million. Then it went up to $58 million plus land costs and development fees on top of that. A school board member confirmed to me that GCS is already $120+ million over that original $300 million bond. They are set to double that. Where is that money coming from? By allowing this egregious spending to continue, we are saddling the children that you think you may be helping with so much debt in the future. Do you know what matters to children? I have 3 young ones. Teachers, administrators, and staff that come into work happy and ready to provide them with a nurturing, loving, and safe environment to learn. How is this going to happen when GCS cannot pay teachers and staff a decent wage as is? How is a new building going to help when buildings across the county have entire hallways closed and laid off teachers due to low census? GCS currently has 90 open positions that they're unable to fill. How are they going to fill a whole new building? This proposed school will negatively impact the Colfax community's characteristics and planned low-density residential land use at very little realistic gain to children of High Point. A lot has changed in our economic, social, and educational landscape since the original 2019 master plan. Tonight, I'm going to give you a fiscally responsible solution. Build a middle school on the 32 acres of land for sale next to Colfax Elementary, redistrict the entire county to balance out school capacity, and use bond money to increase wages for current employees and attract talent to fix the school system. You guys can help hold them accountable. Don't pass the rezoning.
Thank you, Ms. Derrick. Sherry Adams.
Hi, everyone. When people are looking for a new home, they always look at what they want the most. Most people look at the larger picture of the future plans. Some people want to live where there's a big neighborhood for their children, to have other children to play with, and make childhood memories that last forever. Some people want to be within minutes of a Target and a grocery store. When looking for a new home in the Triad, you do research and find the future plans for the area concerning the airport, possible zoning and annexing plans, preserving the area, habitat, and residential living. As a Colfax resident, we all knew what the future looked like, knowing sooner or later that this area would grow. So we were prepared for change. A member of the Planning and Zoning Commission stated he understood why change was hard. That's not the case here. We were and we are prepared for this change, but not a school. However, High Point teamed up with Guilford County Schools and has different ideas. To come in and make massive changes at the cost of its own reputation and dismiss the plans of the future that have been in place for years while supporting a school board that partially supports the schools of High Point. Look at Andrews. It's a ghost town. If High Point were supporting its own taxpayers, wouldn't it be in their best interest to keep this area residential? They would get the annual property taxes, which they would not receive from the school, because Guilford County Schools is a tax user, not a taxpayer. I cannot begin to think of why you would vote yes to this. Why would High Point support Guilford County Schools? Why do we continue to hear over and over that this is a done deal? Why are all the elected officials supporting a school board that has a lawsuit against them for being secretive and having meetings behind closed doors? We have been to multiple meetings here and downtown Greensboro, and not one parent has showed up to rally for a new school. Maybe it's because parents are looking at charter schools, private schools, or even homeschooling their children. We have been put in a situation that forced our community to do a lot of research on a lot of laws, plans, ordinances, and much more. And at the Planning and Zoning meeting, I found that they did not even have all their answers, and they too were stumped by a few things and even were overlooked. That the fact that the engineer speaking was not associated with North Carolina DOT, but was employed by Davenport. This is just like a kidney stone that is too large to travel through the urethra. It causes a lot of pain. It is unexpected, and it brings to people to their knees, not by choice, but something that was not intended.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Ann Blankenship.
Hi there. I'm Ann Blankenship, and I live on Boylston Road in Colfax. I'm asking you tonight to just listen to myself and my neighbors. I want you to consider if the proposed new school is in the best interest of the city of High Point. The Colfax community doesn't think so. GCS is choosing a site that will cost High Point a lot of money to make it plausible. There is no infrastructure, there's no sewer to this site. It's 2 miles from an underused elementary school, and it's 0.6 miles from the Forsyth County line. But you're considering a site on the edge of the county. And why? There's no taxes for High Point on this project. Wouldn't it make more sense to make it a residential development so you could get taxes for the future? There will be no extra cost for road and huge infrastructure cost. It would be a win-win situation. We as a community feel that a residential site would be more fitting in this situation. We'd much rather have 24-hour neighbors that would become our friends than a 24-hour light and noise show that is an eyesore for miles around. But as Tom Kirkman of the Zoning Committee responded to me in 2 emails personally addressed to me, he felt that a school is the best choice for me. Thank you, Mr. Kirkman, for already deciding on April 25th what was best for me and my community. I appreciate your partiality before hearing all the information. Seems like everyone involved on this project knows what's best for Colfax, from the lies we were told at the first community meeting to the decisions of the Planning and Zoning meeting. But we, the people of Colfax, know that this isn't what is best for us. A large school being plopped down in a rural community isn't compatible. The average age of Colfax residents is 49.8. 70% of the households have no children. So this is not going to be a neighborhood school. The children are going to be bussed in here from all over Guilford County. Growth is happening, but there's no guarantee that there will be school-age kids. In fact, the GCS attendance is actually decreasing. Please consider the compatibility of a massive concrete 900-student school that doesn't fit into this beautiful land with mature trees that will be permanently destroyed. A residential development is much more suitable to us, and it should be to you. Do you really want to partner with GCS on this? Their reputation is very lacking, and I'd be hesitant who I want to lie in bed with. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blankenship. Evan Booth.
Hey, Evan Booth, 807 Westbourne Grove Court in Colfax. If you want to build a school in North Carolina, a public school, there's a tool of record for figuring out how much traffic to anticipate. It's the MSTA school calculator. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You plug in how many students you have, staff, buses. It gives you conservative estimates for how many cars to expect in the morning and in the afternoon. And then it multiplies that by the average length of a car and then adds 30% as a buffer for your high demand days, right? And the primary objective, of course, is to keep all school traffic contained in the campus, right? So you don't have any targets sitting on public roads, right? Everyone wants that. So I looked at Colfax Elementary, which is just a couple miles down the road from the proposed site, and I plugged in the student, staff, and bus count for Colfax Elementary into this calculator, and then I went and I compared that to the actual traffic there. And what I found was that the output from the calculator was over 31% short from real-world data, right? So, and that was just a regular day, right? So the calculator output failed for Colfax Elementary, and will fail for this area. And it's really no wonder. I called the office and was able to find out that the data that backs up this calculator is from 2019, the pre-pandemic, the before times, right? And what's changed between then and now, who knows? But anyways, it's reasonable to expect that since we're using the same tool to plan for this site, it will fail in the same way, right? That's a reasonable expectation. The second thing, and this is illustrated on figures 3 and 4 in the handouts, there's a flaw in the site plan currently. There's one point of ingress for parents and for staff, and that's through this car line queue. And that's the only way to get in the parking lot right now. However, the parking lot entrance is probably 75% of the way through the queue. So when people start queuing up, and depending on how early they queue up, and folks queue up really freaking early, that parking lot will very quickly become inaccessible. So you will have staff sitting in that line that will add to that queue, then that's not accounted for in the MSTA calculator, right? That's a flaw in the site plan. And if you want to come and pick up your kid early from school, forget it. You can't get to the parking lot, right? And I'm assuming that there'll need to be some overhaul in that site plan and a new traffic impact assessment issued as well. And I know this council is committed to the safety of its constituents and also to the folks in Colfax, so I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys will address these concerns. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Thank you. Julie Eschweiler. Did I get that name right?
Yes, you did.
Man, I'm getting pretty good at some of these
He
names.
is a 20-year IT professional, by the way, so you might want to consider what he's saying. I'm Julie Eschweiler, 423 Gray Lane in Colfax, and I'm here to address this school proposal. I'd like to start by asking each of you to go back to when you left your homes today. You got dressed, got in your car, pulled down to the end of your driveway, looked both ways, and off you went. Is this a luxury to you, or is this something you expect as a necessity of daily life? Now imagine what your life would be if you pulled down to the end of your driveway and there you found the parent drop-off lane for a 900-student school where parents line up an hour ahead of time, and it's been configured based off of erroneous traffic models which underestimated traffic by 30%. It struck me recently when I say things like this that people don't realize when I say end of driveway, it's literal end of driveway. So I thought I'd make that clear. How do you even begin to count all the ways that this controls your freedom of movement? I continue to be stunned when people say schools are considered compatible with residentially zoned areas. We do have a petition right now with 450 signatures of people who agree with me on that. And also the most disturbing tactic I see used in the world today is picking out a potentially worthy cause or a vulnerable group that people don't want to say no to and using it as a front to make millions behind the scenes. I think this school is a front for developers with questionable, ill-defined benefits for families. If you look at the school enrollment figures, teacher shortages, entire closed hallways in our local public schools such as Colfax Elementary, and then overcrowding at other schools due to students wanting to escape yet a different school, an interesting picture emerges, and that picture is called mismanagement of the school system. As of now, we're not supposed to trust them with this. Absolutely not. One thing certain is the bait and switch to the voters and taxpayers with the regional STEM hub component being dropped. I hear the superintendent conflate various terms in an effort to better sell or cover up the downgrade, yet there it still is, and way over budget. If we are to suddenly go from a quiet rural residential landscape with abundant wildlife to a busy community center with hundreds of cars swarming around the neighborhood multiple times a day and a permanent infringement on the enjoyment of our properties, what exactly is off limits in terms of zoning? Being in harmony by definition means blending in, not so overwhelming the landscape that everyone for miles around conforms to you. They're not going to be able to put up some shrubs that take a decade or two to grow, call it harmonious, and expect to be taken seriously. I do not feel we've been given any sort of real due process in this situation, and we're left to fend for ourselves as special rules and accommodations are made for the applicants. I would have more respect for the zoning committee had they just said, sorry peasants, the fix is in, meeting adjourned, instead of conducting a mockery of a hearing and then handing down an outcome that was transparently predetermined long ago, while being as condescending as possible, by the way. They did run into a snag when they realized our Second Amendment rights on Gray Lane would be infringed because we'd be guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor just for driving over our easement to get to our homes. But Mr. Impartial Tom Kirkman worked hard behind the scenes to come up with another workaround where he hopes the county will own part of the easement running through, but the city will own the actual property. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eschweiler. Louis Thibodeaux. I'll get to you. Not yet. You're next, after Mr. Thibodeaux. After Mr. Thibodeaux.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
My name is Louis Thibodeaux. I reside at 1242 Kensington Drive, High Point, North Carolina. Good evening, City Council and citizens. I've come tonight to ask some questions that need to be asked. Soon you will be voting on the budget for the next year. Have we looked at where our city services are in respect to cost? Our electric, one of the highest in our area. Our water, a few years ago, doing repairs to our water resources, our streets that are in desperate need of repair. I'm not speaking of those that are state responsibility to repair and maintain. And then again, why is the state not maintaining those that need repair? I think one of them is Main Street. Then there is the housing shortage. Have you looked at taking some of the city's empty buildings and doing, I believe, as Greensboro is doing, and giving incentives to create affordable housing? Instead of incentives to more things around the stadium, let's create a viable tax base. Then let's talk about, we need a new city hall. Why not update what we have and save that money for other things that are needed? Remember, the last two high projects that the city took upon, one was the stadium that cost, I believe, 35 to 70 million, and then there was the police headquarters. That was way above what was thought would cost. And then there's the pay raise. There was a vote, I believe it was 6-0, 3 council was not present. I propose that a vote be taken tonight so the entire council can vote. And I think, you know, it's really a shame that we have other city workers that might get 2 or 3%. I understand it hadn't been a raise in years, but let's portion that to bring that up instead of just at one time. Yes, you are our representatives. We, the people, voted you in. Since some were not present for that council vote, I ask again that that vote be taken again. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thibodeaux. Stephen Harper.
Stephen Harper, Lexington Avenue in High Point, North Carolina.
You can raise that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Nancy.
All right, good evening, everyone. I have nothing written or prepared. However, I come here with an issue that is something that is close to not only my heart, but the community that I grew up here and still live in within High Point. and that is the issue of hunger. We have whole communities who they have no access to grocery stores. These communities, by book standards, I believe, are labeled as food insecure communities and food deserts, which personally to me seems like a slap in the face to those communities, seeing as how they are eating, but they do not have access to food items that are going to offer them proper nutrients. And I believe that this issue of hunger is a root cause of a lot of the issues that we are seeing within our cities, such as mental health, violence, homelessness, and I'm just hoping to urge City Council to craft some sort of sector that is willing to create food equity within our city and these communities that are marginalized. I'm calling specifically on the council members from Ward 1, 2, and 3, as these are the most impoverished communities here within our city. And I don't think that we can rely on these nonprofit organizations who are leading the fight for food justice currently, as the board members and the executive chairs look nothing like the communities that they're serving. And so there is a huge disconnect there that I believe is not only not solving the problem, but enforcing this system of racial capitalism and exploiting off of these communities at the same time. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the list of folks who've signed up. Is there anyone who would like to speak who has not signed up? Thanks, sir. Just come forward, please, and give us your name and your address for our record.
Yeah, I gave these out. Sorry, I'm a lumberman, I gotta put it on. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to go through the... Oh, okay.
I got you.
Thanks, sir. Oh. Yeah, could you restart the timer, please? We're not going to hold this against him handing out maps.
I'm Jim Hedgecock. I live at 8857 Boylston Road. I've been a resident of this area since 1958. I have listened very patiently to Mr. Shannon and the school board saying this cow pie, and they turned it into a T-bone steak. But folks, it's a cow pie. If you look at the overhead area that you've got here, they've got a school at Colfax, which is up there in the pink. Now, they've got 38 acres beside of it that's for sale. And you've got so many accesses in and out of there with a dual divided lane highway already. All the infrastructure is already there. Now, the area in the purple over there, plus the county, Forsyth County line, is where they're proposing it. It's off from everywhere. There's no traffic, no way that the traffic can be handled here. We already have Amazon, we have tractor trailer trucks and everything else in there. If you look up between the 240s and the Forsyth County line, all that's industrial. If you look at South Bunker Hill Road, the 40 to Sandy Ridge Road, all the way down to Joe Drive and Bame Road, all of that is industrial. Y'all get really good money, get good tax money. There's very little police responsibilities. This school is a big police responsibility with no taxpayer money. Over here in the green is Southwest, way down here in the bottom. And there's probably 10 sites between, if you wanted to do that, between Southwest and Colfax. But there's a sneaky orange line coming through there, and that's Gallimore Dairy Road, all the way from I-40, all the way to its terminus on Boylston Road. Up there at the top on Sandy Ridge Road, Scuttlebutt, that's supposed to be the largest trucking terminal in North Carolina. And you're throwing all of this traffic in here when we could take and go up to the Colfax School or some other choice. And all I'm asking is that you either say no, or let's put the brakes on and you come back in 6 months.
Thank you, Mr. Hedgecock.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment? Yes, sir. Please give us your name and address.
Abby Godwin at 809 Quail Meadow Lane in Colfax. You know, we're great, awesome at making money in this country. I love the entrepreneurial spirit. I was raised by an entrepreneur, and my husband and I had our own business. What I'm concerned about is the lack of vision in the community, leadership. Don't be seduced, please, by the greed or the lack of vision of someone who just wants to make a lot of money. I agree with the gentleman who spoke previously. 38 acres over there on West Market Street with ready infrastructure, the roads, easy access, everything. Don't destroy what so many of us moved to Colfax for: peace and quiet, a sense of nature, which I watched 300 acres of every bush, every scrub oak, every wildflower, every tree mowed completely down, completely, with little postage stamp properties popping up all around. And oh yeah, they'd throw a little tree here or there. But that's not the same thing. And we have to think in terms of what quality of life do we want? And what affects one group here really ultimately affects all of us. And so please think carefully about this. Have some vision, okay? Don't just do it for the money, okay? And that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period, and we will move forward with our agenda. First part of our agenda will be handled by Councilman Britt Moore, and that's the Finance Committee item.
Thank you, Mayor. We did meet at our regularly scheduled time. Before you tonight is a consent agenda, but before I make a recommendation, because it's the only time once a year where our annual budget is on that, and it is in the consent agenda. There's been several issues raised. I'd like to state that we have held 3 public meetings concerning our budget that were open to the public. But if there are any council members that have any questions or concerns.
Yeah, the budget itself is not part of consent.
Well, I read that wrong. I apologize. Then I will make, on our regular agenda items for finance, I'll make a motion for approval.
Thank you. Okay, there's a motion made by Councilman Moore, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem for approval of the consent agenda items. Is there any discussion regarding anything on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor, and I apologize for the mistake. I scrolled right past it on my iPad.
That's fine. Next are the Community Development Committee items. Councilman Williams?
We only have one item that we need remaining pending for now.
Okay, so nothing new?
No.
Okay. All right, that brings us to our general business agenda, and the first item there is the Opportunity to approve our 2023-24 annual budget. The floor is now open for any discussion or a motion regarding the budget.
I'll make a motion to approve
Okay.
2023-27.
Second.
There's a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilman Williams to approve the annual budget. Is there any discussion on the budget? Okay.
Mayor, we're going to have a couple of votes here because of one item. I think the budget manager was going to speak to that.
Okay.
Yes, real quick, you'll have two actions this evening. One will be the adoption of the annual budget ordinance. That is everything that's included in the budget, included the changes that were approved at the May 18th work session. What that won't include will be the allocation of funds to Forward High Point. Our records have Mayor Wagner and Councilwoman Peters on that board of directors, and so we would have you recused from that vote and then a separate vote taken on that item. And so two actions to approve the full budget.
Okay. Well, then I'll ask Councilman Hudson if he's willing to amend his motion to exclude those two items, exclude Forward High Point, just Forward High Point, correct? Okay. Are you willing to do that? Absolutely. Is your second still good, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Could you clarify that again?
We're voting on everything except for the allocation to Forward High Point because Councilman Peters and I, because we're on that board, we have to be recused before you can vote on that item. So we'll be doing two separate votes. The whole budget except Forward High Point and then Forward High Point. Okay? Everybody's clear what we're voting on?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of approval of the motion?
Do a comment, we do still get to comment?
Oh, okay.
I just want to make a comment.
Put it out there, but nobody said anything.
I appreciate Lewis and Ken, y'all coming. I appreciate y'all being here. And I understand that you say some people don't get, they only get like a 3% raise, and they get that every year. We haven't had one since 2007. And so anyways, I appreciate and respect your thoughts. And just to let you know, we're still the lowest paid city council members in cities our size in the state. But thank y'all. That's all.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to say, comments or questions regarding the budget? Okay. All in favor of approval of the budget, save and accept the allocation for High Point, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We'll need.
A motion to approve the allocation for Visit High Point?
No, we got to be recused first.
Yeah, motion to Mayor Wagner and Councilwoman Peters.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to excuse myself.
I'm voting due to the recusals.
Yes, from voting, on this next item. Is all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, Councilwoman Peters and I are recused. I'll turn the meeting over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, sir. I'll make a motion to approve the city's allocation on the annual budget to Visit High Point. Forward High Point, sorry. Second. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion on that motion? Not all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. I'll pass the meeting back over to the mayor.
Okay, all right. The remaining items are reappointments to various boards and commissions. The first one is reappointment of Matt Whitmire and Roosevelt Sweeney to the Housing Authority Board effective December 22nd, 2023, with term expiring December 22nd, 2028. And I make a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Next item is the reappointment of David Horn and Tyler Walsh to the Board of Adjustment, beginning June 30, 2023, and expiring June 30, 2026. I move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next item is an appointment and a reappointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. It will be the appointment of Rodney Smith to fill an unexpired term to be effective immediately and expire on June 30th, 2025, and to confirm the reappointment of David Blackman, Jeremy Finema, and John Fitzwater to be effective June 30th, 2023, and expire June 30th, 2026. I move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next is the reappointment of Terry Venable and Mark Walsh to the Planning and Zoning Commission, effective June 30th, 2023, and expiring on June 30th, 2026. And I move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second on this item. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next is a reappointment of Sharon McGregor to the Human Relations Commission with a term to be effective immediately and expiring on November 1st, 2024. I move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on this item. Any discussion?
I'd just like to thank Sharon for, Ms. Councilman Moore. I'd like to thank Sharon for volunteering to work in this capacity again. She's done a great job, and I know she'll continue to do as I think she's going to be leading it this next year. So
She's
thank you.
actually leading it now.
That's what I meant.
She's done a
put in.
fabulous job.
Yeah, that's it. But it had been, according to her phone call, it had been recently. But thank you, Sharon.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next is the appointment of Cameron Marsden to the Parks and Rec Commission, beginning July 1, 2023, and expiring July 1, 2026. I move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second for approval of this item. Any discussion?
Again, this is Councilman Moore. Cameron, did you show up? There she is. Stand up so we can see you. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and it's always good. We've got a lot of committees, and at least we can put a name and a face together. Thank you for the time and effort you're going to be putting in and the leadership and ideas you'll bring. So thank you for being here, and thank you for accepting the position.
You've already showed your dedication by hanging around for the next to last item on the agenda. Thank you. All right, any discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We have some minutes to be approved. Is there a motion regarding the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the list of minutes on the agenda. Any discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Before we adjourn, I will state for the record that we are, immediately after this meeting, we're going to be going back into a closed session that was recessed from our special meeting that began at 4 o'clock today. So even though we'll be adjourning this meeting, council will be staying here to go back into our closed session. Would anyone like to announce anything before we adjourn? Anything coming up?
No announcement, but I do recognize we have a new team member in the building. I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting Miss Cynthia Barnes yet, but just want to say officially how excited I am to welcome you as our MWBD coordinator and appreciate you joining the City of High Point family. So thank you.
And on a personal note, I'd just like to give a shout out to my wife. Happy anniversary, 25.
Yeah. Not only did you publicly acknowledge it, but you also didn't forget. That's good. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion before we adjourn? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning the regular meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously, and the regular meeting is adjourned.